So here's what's happening in Berea right now, and I think it's time we talk about it directly. 8 practices into Brown's training camp, and the quarterback competition everybody said would take weeks to sort itself out might already be answering itself. On one side, a second-year quarterback just delivered what people on that practice field are calling the single best throw of the summer. On the other, the guy holding the richest fully guaranteed contract in league history is throwing the ball to the wrong team at a pace that should be setting off alarms upstairs. Let me walk you through how we got here. Start with Fan Day. The stands are packed. Every camera in Berea is pointed at that field, and for once the fan base isn't relying on secondhand reports. They're watching live, and it's in that exact moment that Shedeur Sanders and rookie receiver Denzel Boston connect on something special. Sanders drops back, works through his reads with a patience you don't usually see from a guy in year 2, and finds Boston on a corner route. The window is small, the corner and safety both closing in, and he threads it anyway, right on time. Reporters who've covered this team through years of quarterback disappointment immediately called it the best play of camp through 3 practices. That's not a hot take from someone watching a clip on their phone. That's a beat writer standing on the grass, watching every rep, saying, "This is the best thing he's seen all summer." Here's the detail that turns this from a nice moment into something that actually matters. General Manager Andrew Berea and owner Jimmy Haslam were both standing right there on that field when it happened, not reading about it the next morning, not watching a clip somebody forwarded them. They saw it live, with their own eyes. You cannot manufacture that. The 2 men whose decision this ultimately becomes just watched Sanders drop a dime through a closing window while the crowd erupted around them. If I'm in Sanders' shoes, I don't need anyone to hype this throw up. I need it looping in that conference room on repeat. Now flip the page, because the other side of that quarterback room is telling a completely different story. Deshaun Watson is having a genuinely difficult camp, and I don't say that lightly. Through 3 practices, he's already thrown 3 interceptions, and the one on day 8 came over the middle, right into coverage from linebacker Quincy Williams. By every account, the running back had space in the flat, the checkdown was sitting right there, and Watson put the ball into traffic anyway. That's not one bad rep you wave off. That's 3 straight practices building a pattern, and patterns in camp get charted and remembered. Think about what that means for a guy on Watson's contract. He signed the biggest fully guaranteed deal the league has ever seen, and he's trying to hold off a rookie deal quarterback a good chunk of this fan base already prefers. Every interception in that situation becomes ammunition for the other side, whether he wants it to or not. And it wasn't only Watson turning it over. Dillon Gabriel, the other arm in that room, also got picked off during a 2-minute drill. Not some brilliant disguised coverage beating him, but the ball put directly on a linebacker sitting in a zone. That's the kind of error that gets magnified tenfold in a camp battle, because every rep during roster cut season becomes part of a permanent file somewhere in that building. Let's run the numbers, because side by side there's not much room left for debate. Through 8 days, Sanders is completing somewhere around 80% of his throws, with 0 interceptions across the entire camp. Watson, over that same window, is completing roughly 2 out of every 3 attempts, with 3 picks already on the board. Gabriel lands in the middle, solid completions but already carrying 2 interceptions of his own. And 6th-round rookie Taylor Green is scraping together whatever reps are left behind 3 guys ahead of him. Lay those stat lines next to each other and it's not close. Sanders isn't just winning this competition, he's winning it clean, without the costly mistakes piling up everywhere else in that room. I want to give Denzel Boston his own moment too, because I don't think he's getting nearly enough credit for what he's building. That touchdown throw wasn't a one-off. Later in the same practice, he connected with Sanders again on a crossing route. And he's not only clicking with one arm in that room either, he's reportedly worked well with Watson too, hauling in a deep shot down the sideline on a 3rd and long look. A rookie who only produces with one quarterback is a storyline waiting to collapse the moment the depth chart changes. A rookie who makes plays no matter who's throwing it is a foundation piece. Multiple camp recaps have already flagged Boston as one of the true standouts through 8 days, right alongside fellow rookie KC Conception, who's carving out legitimate early reps of his own. It's worth zooming out on how Todd Monken has actually structured this camp, because it changes how impressive these throws really are. This isn't a static install running the same concepts every day. Day 1 leaned on quick game reads, Day 2 moved into triangle progressions, and by Day 3, Monken had already pushed the offense into deeper 3-level concepts on third and long, with quarterbacks working to hold the ball longer to simulate scrambling under pressure. That's a staff deliberately raising the difficulty every day to see who can actually handle it. And across 8 days of rising complexity, it's Sanders delivering clean, mistake-free football, while the 2 more experienced arms in that room keep handing possessions back to the defense. Now rewind one day, because none of this happened in a vacuum. On Day 2, Deshaun Sanders showed up in Berea to watch his son practice. Before the session started, Coach Prime reportedly sat down with Todd Monken and Andrew Berea directly, and Monken talked about that conversation afterward in genuinely warm terms. That same day, Shedeur worked through a rocky, disjointed start before finding his rhythm late, and once practice wrapped, father and son stood out on the field together, just talking. Walk the sequence with me. Day 2, Coach Prime arrives, meets with the head coach and GM, watches his son fight through adversity, and finish strong. Day 3, Fan Day, every camera rolling, and Sanders delivers the single best highlight of camp with the GM and owner watching in person. You could not script a cleaner back-to-back. National media picked up on that thread too. Both Adam Schefter and Pat McAfee pushed back publicly on anyone framing Coach Prime's visit as a distraction, making the simple point that this is one of the most accomplished players to ever step on a football field, and the sport treats him accordingly wherever he goes. That take lines up perfectly with what we just watched happen. This wasn't a sideshow pulling focus away from the team. It was a Hall of Famer's visit lining up directly with his son's best performance of the summer. I want to speak directly to that front office for a second, because I genuinely think Day 3 needs to become the turning point in how this competition gets talked about going forward. You've got Berea and Haslam standing on that field watching Sanders drop a frozen rope to a rookie he's clearly building real chemistry with. You've got 8 days of hard data showing him around 80% accuracy with 0 turnovers, while the 2 more experienced options in that room have combined for 5 interceptions. At what point does this stop being a podcast debate and start becoming an actual roster decision? Because right now, every practice report and every writer standing on that field is describing the same thing. Sanders is playing clean, confident, sharp football, and the other options simply are not matching it. Let's talk about what this means for Boston specifically, because he's quietly becoming one of the more important pieces of this offense heading into the season. A receiver who can build real chemistry with multiple quarterbacks, already producing highlight-caliber plays in his 3rd practice, is exactly the kind of building block a rebuilding offense needs. And whoever wins this quarterback race, and I think we can all feel where the momentum is trending, is going to have a legitimate weapon on the outside from week 1. Pair that with Conception working the middle and a proven veteran like Jerry Jeudy still in that room, and this passing attack looks more dangerous than most people expected heading into the summer. I also want to touch on Taylor Green, because his situation says something about how crowded this quarterback room really is. He's stuck picking up scraps behind 3 guys ahead of him on the depth chart, but Sanders has reportedly stayed after practice multiple times specifically to work with Green one-on-one, throwing him extra reps since his team period snaps are so limited. That's a veteran move from a guy only in his 2nd year himself. He remembers exactly what it felt like fighting for scraps as a rookie, and now he's making sure the guy behind him doesn't get lost in the shuffle. That's real leadership, and it matters just as much as arm talent when a locker room is quietly deciding who they want steering the ship. Let's talk about how the fans reacted, because the energy in Berea on Fan Day was exactly what you'd expect. The moment that Boston touchdown throw happened, reports described the crowd erupting in real time. It's not hard to understand why. This is a fan base that's been starving for a true franchise quarterback for decades, cycling through disappointment after disappointment. Now they're watching a 2nd-year rookie contract quarterback drop pinpoint accuracy under pressure in front of the men who run this franchise, while the far more expensive veteran option keeps turning the ball over on the same field. You don't need a marketing degree to understand why that's turning into full-blown momentum for Sanders across Cleveland right now. Let's rewind even further, because I want you to remember exactly how Watson's camp has actually gone since day one. This pattern didn't suddenly start on day 8. It started the very first practice. Reports from that opening session had Watson working with the starters early, completing a nice scramble throw, and then almost immediately following it up with back-to-back interceptions in that same team period. One picked off by Denzel Ward, another taken by Greg Newsome over the middle. Monken tried to offer him some public cover afterward, suggesting one of those picks was more a great defensive play than a poor decision from his quarterback. I hear that, coach. I really do. But when you're talking about the guy who signed the richest, fully guaranteed contract in league history, there's only so long a coaching staff can keep extending that same benefit of the doubt. 3 practices, 3 interceptions. At some point, the excuses run out, and I think we're getting very close to that point right now. And let's not pretend this coaching staff doesn't already have thoughts forming on this. Monken has been careful not to tip his hand publicly on any kind of timeline for naming a starter, but he has said he plans to actually play his top options extensively once preseason games begin, which tells me this staff understands exactly what's riding on getting this decision right. You don't just hand a job to whoever signed the bigger check 3 years ago when the tape in front of you is telling a completely different story. Real coaches, the ones who actually want to keep their jobs, make decisions off what's happening on the practice field in front of them, not off outdated expectations. I also want to give credit to that receiver room as a whole, because Boston isn't operating in a vacuum, and that context matters for how sustainable this hot start actually is. Judy is still in that room, a proven veteran who's shown he can be a legitimate outside threat with any kind of consistent quarterback play, feeding him the ball. He reportedly hauled in a highlight-caliber diving grab off a Watson throw of his own. So, let's be fair here. It's not like the veteran receivers are struggling across the board. But what separates Boston is the sheer volume of splash plays he's already producing as an unproven rookie against NFL-level quarterbacks, in a system he's only been part of for a matter of weeks. That's not typical production for a receiver this early in his career, and it's exactly why he's already being flagged as one of the true standouts of this entire camp. Credit where it's due on the defensive side of the ball, too. Quincy Williams picking off Watson wasn't luck. That was disciplined veteran linebacker play, reading the quarterback's eyes and undercutting a route that had no business being open in the first place. And this defense has reportedly been getting real spring production out of rookie safety Malachi Starks, a high second-round investment who's already seeing first-team snaps. Pair a playmaking linebacker core with a talented young secondary, and suddenly this defense starts looking like it could actually carry a young quarterback through some early growing pains if this front office is smart enough to hand him the keys. Let's talk about what a moment like Fan Day actually does for a young quarterback's confidence, because I think that matters more than people give it credit for. Sanders spent his entire rookie season fighting for scraps of reps, watching from the sideline more than he'd probably ever admit publicly. Fast forward 1 year, and he's out there on Fan Day threading a football through a closing window with the GM and the owner watching, in front of a stadium full of fans chanting his name. That's not just a good rep. That's a full transformation in how this kid is being perceived by literally everyone who matters inside that building. Confidence compounds fast in this league. Once a quarterback genuinely starts believing the job is his to lose, the play on the field tends to sharpen even further, and I would not be shocked at all if his next few practices build directly off this exact momentum. There's a business angle worth mentioning here too, because it matters in the modern NFL almost as much as wins and losses do. A rookie contract quarterback who's already this popular with the fan base, already generating this much national attention, with a Hall of Fame father turning every camp session into an event, that's an enormous asset for a franchise that has been starving for relevance. Cleveland hasn't had a true must-watch quarterback storyline like this in a long time, and smart front offices know exactly when to lean into a moment instead of overthinking it into the ground. Now let's actually have the honest counter-argument, because I know some of you are still holding out hope for Watson, and I respect a genuine debate. The case for sticking with him usually comes down to experience and raw arm talent when everything's clicking, And fair enough, those things are real. I'm not going to pretend he doesn't have legitimate top-tier tools when he's playing at his best. But here's my counter, and it's simple. Training camp exists to evaluate who is playing the best right now, in this exact window, with this exact roster, under this exact staff. It is not a lifetime achievement award for past success. 3 interceptions in 3 practices is poor quarterback play at any level of this sport, full stop. And when the guy standing right next to him is completing roughly 80% of his throws with 0 turnovers over that same stretch, the on-field evidence just doesn't support the experience argument holding up much longer. So here's where I land heading into the next stretch of camp. Shedeur Sanders is playing clean, sharp, increasingly confident football against a defense that is actively trying to trip him up at every turn. Denzel Boston looks like a genuine building block at receiver, one who could matter for years regardless of who ends up under center. And Deshaun Watson, through no lack of effort on his part, is turning the ball over at a rate that a team with real Super Bowl aspirations simply cannot build around forever. What started as a training camp storyline is starting to feel a lot less like a competition and a lot more like a formality waiting to be made official.